The real point to take away from this is, if people really were so worried as they claim they are, oh, the end is nigh, all our kids are going to die, we need to do everything right now, you've got to ask themselves, why would you then propose to switch to solar and wind, which we know can only power a small part of the world? Right now, it powers less than 2% of the entire energy consumption of the world. Maybe we can get to 5 or 10%, but we're not going to get to 100%, because what are you going to do when the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing? There's just simply obvious arguments against trying to run a whole advanced economy on just renewables. You will have to use nuclear. And the fact that people say, no, I'm not going to use nuclear, it is the end of the world, but I'm not going to use nuclear, sort of tells you that there's one of these points that they're not honest about.
Yeah, and in actual fact, I mean, we have now a huge uptake in solar and wind farms here in this country, and of course the prices are skyrocketing across the board, and we've got high gas prices as well for various reasons. That the government here want to say that's because of a whole range of other factors, the war in Ukraine, whatever it is. But is it fair to say that wherever those renewables start saturating the market, the prices increase as well? I mean, is that an unfair statement?
No, it's absolutely true. You can see this in all rich countries. Electricity prices were coming down. So, for instance, we have data back from the early part of 1900. Electricity prices per kilowatt was coming down to about 2,000, and then it started increasing. And a large part of that is just simply that many countries in the rich world have started saturating it with very expensive electricity. Now, again, people will say that solar and wind is some of the cheapest electricity, and that's true very often when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. But when it's not, it's actually the most expensive energy form possible, because it's infinitely costly. And then people will sort of, vaguely suggest, well, yes, but batteries. But remember, globally, batteries, we have sufficient batteries to uptake about 1 minute and 15 seconds of the current electricity consumption of the world. So, we can sort of, if you imagine that we were running everything on solar and wind, you could keep the world running for 1 minute and 15 seconds, and then you'd be done. You just don't have backup capacity. Now, we are going to build a lot more batteries, so by the end of this decade, we'll be all the way up to 11 minutes. But remember, you actually need to at least get through the night, but also much more likely get through a couple of days of low wind. And if you incorporate that, we're sort of infinitely far away from this. Again, I'm not saying, innovation can solve some of this, and absolutely solar and wind is going to be part of the solution. For instance, if you live in California, and I would imagine this is somewhat similar in parts of Australia, if you use solar to take out the air conditioning part in the middle of the day, you need the most air conditioning when there's clear skies and lots of sun, which is when you're going to be producing a lot of solar energy to power those air conditioning. That actually turns out to be really well, because those are balanced. So that can be a very, very good idea. But that's sort of, taking the very top out of it, and that turns out to be a good idea. But don't believe that we can actually power most of the world or all of the world on solar and wind. That's just simply silly.